Hi and welcome to WarHQ. My name is Lucius, and today's subject, what we're going to be doing is looking at the new kill team force, the Sisters of Silence. So this came out in the latest White Dwarf, and I just wanted to give my insights on that today, have a look at the potential strengths, weaknesses of this force, but also take a look at some potential builds for 100 points and for 125 points to see if this team could be competitive. Like, how could we use it? Would it be worthwhile taking to a tournament? Is it even worth buying at all? I'll try and answer those things. Before I do, if you'd like to press subscribe down below, we'd much appreciate your support. It takes you a second or two, means a lot to us at this channel as we continue to grow and build, and we really appreciate it. But for now, let's have a look into the episode. Okay, so let's have a look at the unit types of the Sisters of Silence for Kill Team. You get three options, basically. So you've got the Witch Seeker, you've got the Vigilator, and the Prosecutor. So each three of these models for the Sisters of Silence don't have any weapon options beyond what they already have. So let's start with the Witch Seeker. So the Witch Seeker is armed with a Flamer. It's your standard run-of-the-mill Flamer, strength 4, D6 auto hits, range 8, that's pretty much standard. Now these things cost 13 points per model, or 14 points for the superior model. So the superior models in these are pretty good. For 1 point extra, you're getting 1 point of leadership and you're getting an extra attack, which is always worthwhile. Now, the Vigilator is the second model, and then this is armed with an Executioner Great Blade, so they all have this. The superior model is 1 point extra again, costs 15 points, and just the standard model is 14 points. So the Great Blade in itself is quite good. It deals +2 to your strength, -3 AP, and also does D3 damage, which makes it quite a solid close combat option for this army, which, yeah, as I'll go into a little bit later with tactics, could actually really benefit you. Now the last model we need to talk about is the Prosecutor. So the Prosecutor is just a standard bolt gun armored sister, and there's not really much else to say about it. Now all of these three types have Psych Out grenades. Psych Out grenades are good against Psychers and Demons. Not too good against anything else really. But you know, it's situational. Grey Knights are going to fear these guys, as are Demons. So they're going to be a good counter to those two forces. Psych Out grenades will be very useful in that particular reason, and Thousand Suns, I guess, have some good psychic as well. Now, the Witch Hunters themselves, when resolving an attack made by this model against a Psycho model, you can re-roll the wound roll, which is quite strong. They all have that. Plus, they also have the Psychic Abomination. So basically, they can't be targeted by psychic powers or be affected by them, which is very, very strong. That really puts a spanner in the works. I mean, these are Grey Knight killers, right? If you're going to go up against them, so Grey Knights getting their 2 psychic a turn are just going to suffer against this stuff. They're going to have to rely, their 5-man team or whatever it is going to have to rely on their shooting to take out this force before it kills them, which is good news if you're a Sisters of Silence player, I guess. So they're your three options for units. Let's keep on. Let's have a look into the strengths of the Sisters of Silence. The first one that really stands out is their psychic defense potential, which I already sort of touched on briefly. Now, these guys ignore psychic powers that are coming at them and they're not affected by them. So this makes them really, really strong. You know, psychic armies are going to be weeping against this stuff. They can also re-roll all wound rolls against psychic models. So that's another strength as well. So again, I'm going to use the Grey Knight example. Grey Knights are all psychers. So you're basically re-rolling all of your wounds against Grey Knights. I call that powerful and a definite strength. Now, the 3 leader models or champion models that are included in this is 1 superior model per 3 of the unit types. And they're only 1 point extra each, and that gives you an extra attack and an extra leadership. So that is a definite strength. And I'd say, just from looking at these at the moment, I'd say that I would take all 3, right? It's a bit of an auto include, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, so there's another strength. The unlimited flamers and great blades. So you could, if you wanted, you could have a whole force of flamers. Like, it's going to be expensive, I guess, at 13 points a model, 14 for the superior. But you could technically do that, or you could take a whole team of Great Blades if you wanted to. So there's no actual cap on the regular Sisters of Silence. It's only the superiors you can only have one each of. But the regular models, so Great Blades, the Flamers and the Bolt Guns, you can have as many as you want. Well, as many as you can afford is probably a better way to say, but there's no limit. Like, a lot of teams would have, might say, have 2 Gunners, you know what I mean, when they can only have 2 Flamers, or they might have like 2 fighter models like the Death Guard or something, and you can only have two fighters. But these guys are unlimited, so that is a strength in my eyes. Like, you can sort of tailor this. If you're going to like a roster build with this, you could sort of go either way. You know, you could have a whole bunch of Great Blades and a whole bunch of Flamers. Take it situationally, depending on the forces that you are playing against in the tournament. So that gives you a lot of tactical feasibility, I guess. Like, in its own limitation, it gives you some tactical choices, which is a good start. They have a decent stat line. So they've got the Marine stat line. They've got the power armor and everything. The only difference is between them and Marines, they've pretty much got 3 strength, 3 toughness, which is a big thing. It is a bit of a kicker, but their only good close combat unit has bonuses to strength, so that makes them good. But they are a little bit more vulnerable than a normal Marine, but they are cheaper also. And their leadership is another good factor too. So base models all have a leadership of 8, while the superior models have a leadership of 9, both very solid. So having a look at the weaknesses that I can see in my mind, the first one is, as I've already stated, the strength and toughness. So that's 3 and 3. Not really high, easy to wound models, but they do have a good armor save of 3+. So they could die with reasonable AP weapon shooting at them, or some good close combat troops. They will die. But you know, they're stronger than most things, I guess, is a good way to put it. But yeah, that is a weakness in my eyes. The lack of choice is another one. So you only really have the 3 models you can choose from, the 3 unit types. Each has a superior variant, but you can have one each of those. What this is going to do is it's going to set your team limitation a little bit. Like, I would say that most people are going to be bringing, if you're going to take multiple Sisters of Silence teams, most people are going to pretty much equip them the same, or the roster is going to be very much similar regardless of who you're facing. There's not a lot of customization within it, so that to me is a weakness. As I said before, you really could, you've got your close combat stuff and you've got your Flamers. You could use those to sort of take a mix of both wherever you need it in your roster with a few bolters, but beyond that, it's a little bit limiting. And just keep in mind too that this is kind of going to be one of those small to medium sort of small medium sort of force. You're only really going to have, between 7 and 10 models, depending on what size game you're playing for this. And you're going to have to fit those within those points factors, which can be challenging as well. So that's another weakness. Okay, so the White Dwarf magazine has provided us with 4 tactics that the Sisters of Silence can use. So they're all 1 command point, which is good. I like 1 command point ones, especially if they're effective. Now the first one that they get is the Unsettling Presence. So basically it's just add 1 to nerve results, nerve tests from any models within 3 inches of a Sisters of Silence within a turn. This is situational, not that powerful really, but if you're on turn 3 or 4 and the enemy are sort of breaking and have lost a few models with a few flesh wounds around, this can be quite powerful. Worth chucking in if you just want to shake a few of their models. My favorite one, I really like this one, is the Purgation Sweep. So basically with this one, until the end of the phase, for a Flamer model in the shooting phase, you can change the D6 type of the weapon, Assault D6, to an Assault 6, which means that you automatically hit with 6 attacks every time you use this with a Flamer. I think this is really good. And I'm definitely going to be including some Flamers in my list. So you can already tell, right? Now you've got Decapitating Strikes for the Great Blades. Basically, it just adds 1 to the wound roll, which is important because they're a 3 strength model. They get +2 from the actual blade itself, and with another further +1, you're basically doubling any, getting a 2+ to wound anything with a 3 toughness. Basically, the best way to look at it. And then the last one is Punishment Fire. So basically with this one, I quite like this too. So this changes your standard bolt guns range and attack type. So firstly, it turns it from a rapid fire 1 weapon, which is shit, into an assault 3 weapon, which is very strong, but it does bring its range to 18 inches. But I think this makes those prosecutor models with the bolt guns actually viable. I think this could make them pretty good. And now all of these are 1 CP, as I said. I think they're reasonably strong tactics. There's not many of them, but I think the majority of them can have a reasonable effect on the game. Okay, so I've been musing with some potential list builds for the Sisters of Silence. And I've made a 100-point variant and I've made a 125-point variant. Now, I was limited in the 100-point variant where I did want to take more of the Vigilators, but points-wise, it just didn't really fit into the 100-point sort of scale of things. But I did add another one in on the 125-point force. And I also wanted to take a couple of prosecutors just to have the numbers and also some objective holders while the rest of the force would charge in, really. Like the Flamers and... so the Witch Seekers and the Vigilators would really be a close combat force, like moving in together and flaming and chopping the shit out of anything that moves, I guess. And that's sort of how I'm thinking of using this force if I was to run it. So position 1 in the 100-point list is for the Prosecutor Superior. Now, she is the leader. And pretty obvious choice for a leader. It's only 11 points, so I can keep her in the back row. I can keep her on an objective if I want. She can still shoot. Anything gets within 18, she can use that 1-point skill to get an assault 3 weapon, which will make it pretty decent. So the second position is the Vigilator Superior. Now, she is a veteran specialist in my list, and I really think with a veteran specialist, probably the best for this model. Because what I'm thinking here is she's going to be able to do that advanced move pre-game, and then she's going to possibly get a charge off on turn 1, which would be very strong, and that's how I envision seeing her. You could make her a combat specialist if you want, but she already has the 3 attacks, and she's already pretty good in my eyes. I think veteran is a lot stronger option in this particular one. Then we've got the Witch Seeker Superior. You'll notice I've taken all 3 superiors. Pretty obvious choices. She's the Flamer chick, she's pretty good, and I've made her a demolition specialist. So obviously made her a demolition specialist so I can get those bonuses to my wound rolls, and then I can pay for an additional one as well, so to get better wound rolls on anything with a toughness of 4 and beyond. Just to make things easy to kill with my Flamer as I'm moving in closely supporting the Vigilators. And then that moves on to 2 Witch Seekers, just 2 standard Witch Seekers with Flamers, 1 Vigilator, and 2 Prosecutors. So that rounds it out at exactly 100 points for this force, and this was the highest model count I could get with still getting a decent competitive force. So it's got 8 models in it, and it has a break point of 5. So it's not the worst. Like for an elite team, that's still not that bad, really. And you do have 3 Flamers in there, and you do have 2 Great Blades in there as well, and supported by some Bolters. So it's not the worst combination. You've got most of your bases covered. But the 125-point variation is quite simple. All I really did was I added 1 Vigilator, so that's one of the Great Sword Sisters, which I wanted more of anyway, and an extra Prosecutor. So this brings up the total points value to 124 points, with no potential of getting any extra, because there's no other upgrades I can get. This brings the model count to 10, and brings the breakpoint to 6. So this makes the force a lot better in my eyes. Like 125 points always does. It just makes your force just that little bit better, a bit more competitive. I did forget to mention that the first Vigilator that I had is a Zealot Specialist, I think. But beyond that, they're my list builds. See what you think about them. Tell me if you change it in any way. I mean, there's not a lot of things to change, really. You could mess around. Obviously, if you had a roster, like this is only 8 to 10 models, I've got another 10 models to play with, right? So I could totally deck this out in a number of ways. But this is just a first thought list build, and you tell me what you think. So there we have my first thoughts on the Sisters of Silence, how I would use them, how I could potentially see them working within Kill Team itself. Let me know down below if you've got any different ideas. I think they have the potential to be strong. A lot of these kind of elite forces, some of them are either like shooty base or close combat base. These ones can go both ways, and they're reasonably good at it. They are a little bit brittle as far as these kind of models go, but do have good saves. And with 8 to 10 models, depending on your points cost there, what you're using in the game, they are pretty reasonable, I think. As I said, very one-sided. Like you know what they're probably going to bring. There's no great mystery that they're going to take all of the superior models and then they're just going to fill it up with whatever they can. Bit of a mixture of everything, I'd say, is probably the strongest way to go. But as I said, with roster builds, you'd be able to make these a little bit more catered to the enemy that you're fighting at any time by adding more Vigilators and more Witch Seekers in there as well. And you could, you could even go a full Prosecutor list and just go for bodies. You know what I mean? Like take as many bodies as you want, depending on the mission that you're doing. So with a good roster, you'd be able to make these reasonably competitive. I'd give them like a sort of a mid tier. I reckon. I think they do pretty good. I mean, they're very situational too. So I mean, if you're fighting Grey Knights, I'd give them a very high chance of success. I think as a Grey Knight player, you'd be pretty strapped with all these bonuses to psychic abilities to be able to do much against these guys. You just have to get lucky with your silencer and heavy weapon rolls, pretty much, before you get killed, I'd say. But yeah, they're my first impressions on the Sisters of Silence. They look like a pretty cool sort of addition. Probably not the models that I was looking forward to this year. I'm still waiting for the Noise Marines and a bit more of a Slanesh sort of unit, even, that we can use Games Workshop if you ever listen to this, which you won't. But yeah, beyond that, I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Lucius, this is WarHQ, and I am signing out.